Hello, my people. Let me play another one. Let me welcome you with a nice song. A nice song. Yeah. Hey. Emagcineni Kamaku. You find these songs on Spotify. Just go to Spotify, search Women of Kalata. Women of Kalata, or search the name of the song. Mamlambo, Fasonti, Unongangela, Unonkala. It's the different names of the songs. Just search for the names. The songs should come up in a playlist. There's a lot of songs there on Spotify. A lot of them. I think I have maybe 10, 11 of these kinds of songs. But there's also other platforms. If you just search for songs like Umala and Undlambe, these are the songs. When elderly people refer to these songs, they call them Imihala or Ondlambe. So songs like this are known as Imihala. Hey, my people. Yeah. I see we have about 6 people. Please share the live, my guys. Please share the live. Today, we're going to just touch on random things. A lot of different things, but perhaps I want to start on this thing of Bantu migration. The Bantu theory. The Bantu theory. The idea, the concept that Abantu, or there's some ancient home of Bantu peoples, the title itself being complete nonsense. But the idea that there's some ancient home of Abantu somewhere in Cameroon, or in Congo, or in Sudan, it changes depending on the mood of the people who propagate these lies. If they wake up on the wrong side of the bed, Bantu people are from Sudan. If they wake up on another side of the bed, Bantu people are from Congo. The next day, Bantu people are from Nigeria or Cameroon. So you can never truly know, where they stand with this thing. But one thing they will tell you is that they know they are the authority and they can speak on this. It is amazing to me that it's 2025, not even a single comprehensive genetic study of these so-called Bantu peoples has been done. Not a single comprehensive genetic sequencing, fully funded, that is going to actually uncover these things. I guess scientists are not interested in doing that because it's probably going to give results that they can't actually have opinions on. Any kind of study that has been done on the so-called Bantu people, any kind of study, genetically, has never proven anything that these people are claiming on these theories that they propagate. The Bantu theory has never been a real thing. It has never been a fact. It has never been a reliable source. It doesn't look at genetic variation. It doesn't look at linguistic diversity. You know that Abantu, you can find someone from Congo. Some people from Congo speak their indigenous languages. Not Kiswahili, their indigenous languages, like Kifuleru. Some tribes there in Congo, they don't understand. Another Muntu, another Bantu person from another country, it's hard to understand each other. You understand? These languages are not necessarily mutually intelligible. Some are mutually intelligible, but not all so-called Bantu languages. This is like 600 languages, guys. 600 languages. There is no real Proto-Bantu language that exists. No knowledge of such a language in science, scientific society. No scientist can come forward. No linguist can come forward. Kamagu Mukaranga, Kamagu, my brother. No linguist has come forward to say, look, I've uncovered a Proto-Bantu language. But somehow we must be fed the lie that there's some Bantu migration that took place. I'm going to categorically state here today, with no fear and no favor, I'm going to state it categorically. There is no Bantu migration. It never happened. It never happened. But to understand the obsession with this Bantu migration, you need to understand the people who are behind it, you know? You actually have to understand the people who are behind the theory. You can't just take it as you see it on Wikipedia. Understand the earliest studies or the earliest propositions that there was a Bantu migration to begin with. And this takes us to a man who was involved in a lot of African languages, by the way. A man called, what's his name, Gonja? Malcolm Guthrie. If you don't know who Malcolm Guthrie is and you believe in the Bantu migration, then you don't know what you believe in. So, the problem with Bantu migration is that it assumes that similarity in language, in a few words, by the way, 10,000 words, if not 5,000, I'm not sure. But this guy, Malcolm Guthrie, was a missionary in Zambia. He was a missionary in Zambia. He collected a couple of words, categorized them into 15 groups. And then after he categorized them into 15 groups, then he started, saying that he thinks Bantu people come from a specific region. Malcolm Guthrie said he thinks Bantu people come from Congo, southern Congo, in Katanga. That's what Malcolm Guthrie said. The linguist who was a missionary in Zambia. One. But he's not the only one. Joseph Greenberg, the American linguist, who said Bantu people actually don't come from Katanga in Congo. They come from somewhere in Cameroon and Nigeria, between Cameroon and Nigeria. That was Joseph Greenberg, an American. On the other hand, Wilhelm Heinrich Blick, a German, is the one who came with the whole idea of Bantu. In these groups of languages, he called them Bantu. Now, you are noticing that all these foremost scholars, all these foremost linguists in these so-called Bantu studies had absolutely no idea what they were talking about. They had no clue. That's why they abandoned it. That whole Bantu theory thing is a thing of the 80s and 70s. It has never been, no further studies have been done. No genetic sequences in a huge scale has been done. No real investment has been done towards this Bantu migration thing. Like, they actually don't give a damn about it. Maybe you should actually see the faces of these people who tell you who you are. Maybe you should see the faces so that you can see what I'm talking about. This is Malcolm Guthrie. This is the one who said Bantu people come from Katanga in Congo. Malcolm Guthrie, right? We also have Willem Blick. This is Willem Blick. He did a lot of work in South African languages. He did a lot of work in Kwe. He did a lot of work in those languages. I have actually one of his dictionaries that I wrote, that I kept. He wrote it in the 1800s. It's just amazing. And then there's another one, a third guy. But it's important that we know who these people are. Yeah, bon. So we have Joseph Greenberg. He says people come from Cameroon. You have Malcolm Guthrie. He says our people come from Katanga in Congo. You have Willem Blick in 1850. He categorized more than 500 languages. More than 500 languages. Willem Blick called them with one word, Bantu. Regardless of what the people were calling their languages, it did not matter to Willem Blick. Simply because Willem Blick called them Bantu, they had to be Bantu. And to this day, our people online are always going back and forth fighting about Bantu languages. But when we talk about Bantu languages, we need to understand that It's not one specific language. It's 500 to 600 languages. Thank you, observer. It's 500 to 600 languages. So now, how can Europeans with no real funding to do a deep dive into these languages, no real investment, massive scale, huge scale genetic sequencing is done, how can this Bantu theory be taken as a real thing? In fact, there were some genetic studies done. I'm going to answer all the questions. Don't worry, my people. Thank you, Brother Lee. I'm going to answer all the questions. I've seen your questions. I see people saying that the Bantu migration was Moses leading Abantu and all that, and other people. I'm going to deal with that. But right now, I still have a proposition to make. When we talk about Bantu, we have to look for a few issues. You have to look for historical evidence that there was this group called Abantu in West Africa. We need to have historical evidence that they actually existed there. We need oral accounts from groups that are there right now that confirm. I will give you a very good example. There are people called Bangoni, Abangoni. These people today, you'll find them in Malawi, in Tanzania, in Zambia. There's evidence that they were from South Africa, and we know that they were from South Africa because it's part of our history too. There are people in Zimbabwe today who are known as Amandebele. They come from South Africa, and we also know that Amandebele as Zimbabwe come from South Africa. There are people in places like Mozambique today known as Amachangan. They come from South Africa, and we know it. We can confirm it. There's evidence, So, I need some kind of evidence from the cultures in those regions where Bantu people are said to come from. I need evidence from those cultures. Thank you, Mukaranga, my brother. I need those cultures to come and tell me that indeed, from this region and this region, our ancestors told us there was a group of people who left and went all over the world. Yes, there are Lozi people in Zambia. And we know that these Lozi people are related to us here in the South. We know it. They don't just claim it because it's a white guy who said it. We know it. There's linguistic evidence, there's cultural evidence, and there's physical evidence. We have Bahurutse in Zambia. We know these are our people because there's evidence for it. You have Baroti. The list is endless. But the thing is, there's evidence that these people are one with us. It's there. The evidence is there. They say it. We say it. We are aligned. So our problem is not being related to specific groups. I don't have a problem being related to people from Congo. I don't have a problem being related to people from West Africa. Heck, I don't even have a problem if I came from Middle East. I don't have a problem with those things. What I have a problem with is being expected to accept a theory that has no basis. Whereas I have thousands of facts that prove otherwise. I have thousands of facts that show that this theory is not anything. It's a fugazi, a smoke screen. So I don't have an issue, even if I would find new information tonight that says my ancestors came from China. I would love that. I would appreciate that. I would accept it because it's the truth. So truth is not my issue here. Lies being purported as truth is my biggest problem. Lies being purported as truth and me being forced when I apply for a job to tick a box of a label that my ancestors did not give to me. That for me is a bit of a problem right there. I cannot be boxed into something that I'm not and keep quiet about it. I can't. Thank you, observer. I can't. So we have to then find evidence in the history of the region that people claim these people came from. Right now, there's no one specific region that these so-called Bantu people are said to come from. It's all guesswork. They are all guessing. The people who claim there's a Bantu migration are guessing. They do not know it. They do not know enough about indigenous African culture to even formulate a hypothesis. It's not a hypothesis, it's a guess. Because at least a hypothesis is testable. You can test a hypothesis. This is not even a hypothesis because it's not based on real credible observations. So what I want to say now, we have to look at oral history of the people that are said to have migrated and the people from whom these people are said to have migrated. Thank you guys for the gifts. Please keep them coming. We need those gifts. We need evidence from Abantu. We need evidence from the tribes there. Don't worry, Sandile, Kolizwa. We'll deal with the Bible and Mpumi. We'll deal with your Musa and Kamkan and Mansa Musa. We'll deal with those things. Don't worry. I'm talking now. So I'm the one who's saying, I'm the one who's on this floor now. I'm the one who's on the floor and I'm the one who's going to dictate how this discussion goes. I will only address anything else when I'm done talking. So please relax. That's the first thing we have to look at. Secondly, the movements now. The movements of the people. Now, I, for a fact, know that there have been many movements within the continent of Africa. From north to south and from south to north. To and fro, to and fro. Anyone who thinks we did not move about in our own continent is utterly deluded. Kunjalo amzo, di moment. Anyone who thinks and supposes that we did not move about is utterly deluded. We did move. We did move. So I don't have a problem with that. But those movements must be supported by empirical evidence too. Thirdly, we have to look at the diversity of the languages now. Because this whole group called Bantu languages, within itself, there's so much diversity. Even if you can find the purest versions of these languages, they're still very diverse. They're still very diverse. You understand? So we also have to address that. We cannot act as if Bantu languages are this massive group. It's not like someone from South Africa can understand someone from Cameroon. Come on. You can't understand someone from Cameroon when they speak. Someone like me, who has a bit of knowledge, I may be able to decipher cognates, I may be able to decipher similarities. But our languages are not mutually intelligible. So we also have to address those things. Why is that the case? And why then do we have this one massive group for everything? Then thirdly, we need to look at genetic diversity, which is the biggest contributor. Because this one, even the little genetic evidence that's there, it confounds scientists. The way a couple of genetic studies that were done, it confounds them, it confuses them. They don't understand why there's some genetic variation within these groups. But even more than that, there's something I want to say. Some genetic studies that were done show us that there's so much genetic variation within the female genes of the so-called Bantu. So much genetic variation. It's something that confounded these theorists, like the one in the picture, Willem Bleek. It confounded them why the females have so much variation in their genetics. Some females show pygmy DNA, some show so-called San DNA, some show so-called Khoisan, Khoi DNA, some show, you understand that there's no clear understanding why there's so much diversity within the DNA when it's being sequenced. Mitochondrial DNA. Or they say, no, it means then there must have been much fewer women in the Bantu migration. It was only men. So the men went around taking all the other women in Africa. They slept with pygmy women and Khoisan women. They did not have women in their tribe. Come on, man. Come on. Do you not know that these so-called people that you call Bantu, they are people who practice, what is this? Polygamy. You mean to tell me an average man who has 4 wives, when they migrate, they're going to leave all the wives behind and it's only going to be the men? So already that is misaligned with the culture. Gap number one, they did not realize that there's a culture now that you must sort of like address in these theories. So when they do their genetic sequencing, they find that they don't understand why there's so many different genetic patterns within the women. Thank you, observer. They don't understand it. They think, oh, why do I see this genetic pattern? It resembles pygmy women. This one resembles Khoisan women. This one resembles East African women. But it's all within the same population, the so-called Bantu. So they were saying, maybe actually the migration was dominated by men. Maybe it's the man who did the Bantu migration. And these men came and they took all the women and then they mated with the women and then, they gave birth to the Bantu. So already now, it's complete bollocks. Because majority of these cultures practice polygamy. There's no way that they're going to move around without their wives. Do you understand? There's no way, if there were this mega group that existed from ancient time, there's no way that they're going to leave their wives behind. Secondly, for a very long time, these so-called Bantu cultures for a very long time did not necessarily marry outside a lot. They did not necessarily marry outside other cultures a lot, especially not the woman who's going to give them the heir. Even to this day, we still do that. Royal families marry other royal families to give birth to the heir, but not just other royal families. It must be a royal family that is known. Anyway, let's look at now. Let's look at there's a person called Samwiri Luanga Lunyigo. Samwiri Luanga Lunyigo. Samwiri questioned the validity of the Bantu theory as early as 1976. This network has started. Samwiri questioned the validity of the Bantu theory as early as 1976. And in 1995, another African, Samwiri is an African from Central Africa. Samwiri is an African from Central Africa. He questioned the Bantu migration already. People think this thing of disproving Bantu migration is a South African thing. No! People from Central Africa questioned it already. Samwiri Luanga Lunyigo questioned it. And then, that was in 1976. And then in 1995, there was another African who questioned it. An African scholar called Jan Van Sani. Jan Van Sani also questioned the validity of the Bantu theory. They say there was never a single Bantu migration, even if one calls it an expansion. He says that the existing Bantu expansion hypothesis must be totally abandoned. The scraping of the hypothesis will make room for more realistic and quite different interpretations of research hypotheses. This is Van Sina in 1995 on page 195. Jan Van Sina, 1995, page 195. He says the Bantu migration must be completely scrapped. So you want to look at the work of these two Africans, Samwiri Luanga Lunyigo and Jan Van Sina. But then there are many other Africans who completely oppose this Bantu migration. I do understand that some South Africans are not familiar with these kind of things because they were under apartheid in those years. So most South Africans would not even have access to these things. They were under apartheid. So South Africans are not even familiar with the concept of one mega group called Bantu. South Africans are not familiar with that. South Africans just started accessing majority of this information in the 90s and early 2000s. Just like the whole thing of Azania, South Africans were fed that thing by political movements. No indigenous South African culture knows anything about Azania. Just like no indigenous South African culture knows anything about Bantu migration. Not even one culture knows anything about that. These are modern, new age ideas that are being spread. So now, the term Bantu, by the way, is actually found in few languages. The term Bantu itself, in its form, the form Bantu, is found in quite a few languages. In many others, that word in its proper spelling, Bantu, does not exist. Ironically, many sub-Saharan Africans who did not even know the meaning of such a word, Bantu, many of them Once this theory was popularized, they appeared to have discovered an identity that they never had, and they've used it since to implant, establish, and declare themselves as the real majority of the original Africans. Thank you, observer. So many Africans, before this Bantu theory was popularized, did not even have that concept of some gigantic mega group of people called Bantu. They did not have that concept. So it's like when this thing was popularized by the likes of Albert Wilhelm Bleek, the likes of Joseph Greenberg, and the likes of Malcolm Guthrie. When these guys popularized these theories, a lot of Africans felt like, wow, we can actually take this Bantu thing and make it ours. And all of a sudden, there's a Bantu group now. Some Bantu group that just, appeared out of nowhere. Nobody really knows where this Bantu thing comes from, but apparently there's a Bantu identity now, a new Bantu identity. You understand? So, now, let's move forward. This Bantu myth, it actually came at the perfect time, and this was pointed by Jan van Sina. This Bantu myth came at the perfect time to replace an older myth which existed, the Hamitic myth. Remember, back in the day, there was no Bantu group. It was Hamitic people. You had Hamitic people, Semitic people, and Japhetic people. The Japhetic people were the great Europeans. White skin, green eyes, blonde hair. Those are the people of Japhet. The Semites are the bronze-skinned people. That's the theory they were pushing. The Arabs and the Jews and the this and the that. These are the Semites, the Semitic people. And then the black race are the children of Ham. They are cursed with the curse of Ham, which obviously, if you ever read the Bible, there's no curse of Ham ever. It never happened. It was a curse of Canaan. But I'm not even here to discuss that. All I'm saying is the Bantu myth perfectly replaced the Hamitic myth. So now you no longer had the children of Ham. You had the children of Ntu. The children of Untu, the Bantu. Thank you, observer. So all those groups who were previously known as Ham were either called Negro people or Bantu people, regardless of what they called themselves. As long as you spoke a language that formed that belonged into that group that was formed by this guy on this picture, that group of 500 to 600 languages that Willem Bleek called Bantu, as long as your language was put in that group by Willem Bleek, you were Bantu now. It didn't matter where you come from. You were Bantu as long as you spoke that language, which is in that group that was created by this man. So this Bantu myth has replaced the Hamitic myth. Bantu languages are equated with people now. It's not just language, it's people now. It's a type of society, it's a type of culture. In fact, nowadays, Bantu is a race. Bantu is a race all of a sudden. It's no longer just humans. It's not Homo sapiens now. It's not a species, it's a race. We are the Bantu. It's a race now. And I get it. I get it. These ideas are attractive, man. These are attractive ideas, It's something that you can gather around and mobilize yourselves and, create some stories around it. The great 12 Bantu kingdoms. Bantu kingdom of Congo, the Bantu kingdom of Baluba, the kingdom of the Kimbundu people, the kingdom of Zimbabwe, the great kingdom of Mapungu, great Bantu civilizations. It's good. It's a nice thing to gather around and, form some level of pride. But is there real evidence in cultures? Is there evidence culturally? Do these people know about this thing? Is there any kind of empirical evidence, whether from oral accounts or anything to that matter, that supports this newfound identity? It's like now all of a sudden South Africans are going crazy about Azania. 2-3 generations to come, 2-3 generations to come, we're gonna have our kids are gonna have a problem with understanding where this Azania thing came from. No, Azania was a great ancestor of the people. We are Azanians, we're not Bantu anymore. You understand that? You shift and shift. Ungumafa evuka njengenyanga, like a moon that dies and resurrects. So we need to now assess the validity of the Bantu migration. We need to assess it. And you cannot assess the validity of the Bantu migration unless you assess its basis. And its basis is language. The Bantu migration was not based on anything else, guys. Go and study the early writings of the Europeans who came with the Bantu myth. They did not base it on genes. They did not base it on appearance. They did not base it on culture. They did not base it on nothing except some words that were collected by Guthrie. Guthrie collected words in Zambia. And then he said, these words, they seem similar to other words that I hear somewhere around Congo. These people are from Congo. They are from Katanga, all of them. So all Bantu come from Katanga in Congo. Joseph Greenberg was like, no, that's not true. I know Bantu more than you. So Joseph Greenberg comes and says, no, they come from Nigeria. But long before Malcolm Guthrie and Joburg Greenberg, long before them, the German Wilhelm Heinrich Bleek, the one you see on the screen here, he already found 500 to 600 languages, different languages. He called them the Bantu languages. Those people, they never called their languages Bantu. They call them by their names. Kifuliru, Kikuyu, isiZulu, Sikwena, Sirolong, the different dialects of Sisuthu. No real genetic studies have been done to this day. No real genetic studying has been done. So the biggest effect of the Bantu story is that it replaced the Hamitic story. It replaced the Hamitic story. So now we're no longer the children of Uham. We're no longer the children of Kush. We are just Bantu. Do you understand? But we used to be the children of Ham, the children of Kush before. The cursed nation of Kush, of Ham. Hey, my people. The similarities in African cultures, they have to be there. They have to be expected. If there were no similarities, then there would be something else altogether. African cultures have to be similar because we come from the same stock. We are proper Homo sapiens. We literally have the oldest human DNA. So any kind of human culture would have had to come from some single source in Africa. Whether this is 200 years ago, 200,000 years ago, or what, it doesn't matter. We come from a single source. And it always points back to Southern Africa. That's why even amongst the Tram communities, the so-called Bushmen, when you do a proper genetic sequencing, those people, you find their DNA connects them to many other populations in Africa, not just South Africa. The L0D, which you find amongst the Tram, it connects them to West Africans and East Africans alike. You go to queer societies, so-called Hottentots, their DNA connects them to East Africans and Southern Africans as well. The exact same thing you will see in South African DNA. I don't understand why people are confused by this. The haplogroup of so-called South African men, so-called black men, the E1B1A and these varieties, that haplogroup comes from the original L haplogroup of the so-called Kwe. It literally, it's there. It's a publicly available information. So, South African DNA, any culture in South Africa that exists today, any culture that exists in South Africa today came from Kwe DNA. I don't give a damn what you think or what you don't think. There's all evidence that suggests your culture came from Kwe DNA, especially around Zimbabwe. The biggest kind of queer evidence, like the biggest contribution of queer DNA is the Zimbabwe-Zambia area. But even before that, remember, this is thousands and thousands of years. In fact, you can go to Sudan right now, in Nakada 1 and Nakada 2. You can go to Sudan right now. Those grave sites that are found there, they have hunter-gatherer queer DNA. In Northern Africa, the exact same thing. There's DNA that was found in those skulls there. It links them to Southern African. Even in West Africa, there are hunter-gatherer skeletons that were found there. Even in East Africa, hunter-gatherer communities are still there. And all these hunter-gatherer communities in West Africa, East Africa, Northern Africa, Central Africa, they are all linked to one group of people, Southern Africa. There is not even one region in Africa that did not have hunter-gatherer people who speak in click languages who are related to Southern African population. Not even one region. You can go as far back as before dynastic Kemet even began. Before there were even pharaohs. There's queer DNA there. Southern African people's DNA. For me, that makes complete sense. Because these people come from a proto-ancestor. All these African cultures you see, genetically, they come from the same source. They come from the same source. Now, the oldest variety tends to be seen in groups like the Kham and the Ngu and the Khegwi and the Gange. And those groups are not necessarily separated along linguistic lines. So for me, it's amazing also to push this agenda that, but let me continue, né? Let me continue. So let's look at some of the genetic studies that were done. What conclusions did these people come with? So there was a public study that was done in 2002, né? This is the conclusion that they after they saw some haplogroups, some diversity in terms of haplogroups. No, but look at Nyomos. Egyptians come from sub-Saharan Africa. Pre-dynastic Egypt. You should do research on pre-dynastic Egypt. Even West Africans themselves, the people in West Africa today, are not the archaic population of West Africa. So the West Africans you see today, there were other West Africans before them who were hunter-gatherers. So the West Africans you see today are actually an evolved population that came from hunter-gatherers. Those hunter-gatherers are related to Kham people here in Southern Africa. Even in Egypt, you look at pre-dynastic Egypt, before there were dynasties and before it was an empire. There's a site called Nakada 1 and 2. You can go check it out right now. And there were studies that were done, Nakada 1 and 2. The skeletons that were found are distinctly sub-Saharan African, are distinctly connected to Southern African hunter-gatherer communities. But I'm gonna share something. Ne? I'm gonna share something here. The names of animals that are somehow agro-pastoralist, animals and plants that are somehow evidence of agriculture and pastoralism, which is said to separate the people of Southern Africa. The names of these animals, like sheep and goats and cows, are names you also find in so-called hunter-gatherer communities. Did you get what I'm saying? If sheep, goats, and cows were so central in the ancient cultures of the so-called Bantu, ne, we would see some kind of separation when it comes to naming animals. But we see proper similarities in all wild animals. But not just wild animals, body parts themselves. All names of body parts. There's no group of people who can identify themselves with borrowed words. Because I get it, they say, when they hear a click word, oh no, it's a borrowed word. But even names for internal things, like intestines, nerve endings, veins, these word names have clicks in them. Even names for spiritual symbols in our cultures, they've got clicks in them. So these clicks go deeper than just borrowed words. You understand? They go deeper than that. But anyway, let me continue. The findings of the study. The findings of the study that was done on some Bantu people. No genetic study demonstrated conclusively. Yes, Lucanio emerged first and we emerged later on. But when you say we, who do you refer to? Who do you refer to when you say we? Because I can just tell you that my ancestors are Kwe. They speak Xhosa though. So that's another thing. Language group. For example, Ulimpondomise. Within Amampondomise, there are a lot of Kwe themselves within there. So do you then separate based on bloodline or just Abantu based on the language? So do you understand? There's also that layer of so much mixing, which is not the first mixing that happened. Because we come from the same source in the first place. But the oldest link is found within these hunter-gatherer communities. The oldest link to proto-populations, to the original ancestors. So we have the same ancestors. One group emerged, took this branch based on lifestyle, hunting and gathering. Another group emerged, took this branch to be agriculturalists. Another group emerged, a mixture of the two. You see? We'll go back to that. I don't wanna deviate. I wanna read the findings of this study. Recently published genetic reports based on Y chromosome. Based on Y chromosome, mitochondrial DNA, and diverse haplogroups within Bantu groups, some of which showed pygmy blood, concluded that, and this is a genetic study that was done in 2002. Overall, I quote, there seemed to have been a higher drift on the male than on the female line during the so-called Bantu dispersals, resulting in a reduced variety of incoming haplogroups and haplotypes. This means that the males in so-called Bantu society, they tend to have similar, patterns in their genetics. But not always, but they do tend to have similar. There's less diversity. This may in part be accounted for by higher levels of assimilations on the female side, possibly from both Central and Eastern African. Or it may reflect a larger female effective population size in the dispersing groups. Different mating patterns and cultural practices between males and females may have played a part in these processes. Basically, what these Europeans are finding is that it's not as easy as they thought now to understand the so-called group of people that they labeled as Bantu. Now they're realizing that there's so many other layers in this group. You're finding pygmy people within the so-called Bantu. You're finding East African populations within the so-called Bantu. You're finding Kham populations within the so-called Bantu. You're finding Ngukwe populations within the so-called Bantu. And this is exactly what then they realize that, damn, there's so much diversity here. Even within mitochondrial DNA, which is passed from mother to mother to mother to mother, mother to daughter to daughter to daughter to daughter, sorry. The second research came to the same conclusion. This one was done in 2005. It came to the same conclusion. They say, our results support the sex-biased model, whereby the replacement of pre-existing languages by Bantu languages, so-called, more closely parallels the turnover of Y chromosomes than mitochondrial DNA. How can this be explained? One explanation is that Bantu male farmers dispersed over longer distances or in greater numbers than Bantu females. Another possibility is that males and females dispersed equally, but there was a higher effective migration. So basically what they're saying is that they don't understand why there's so much diversity in Bantu DNA. They don't understand it. So now, they are coming now with theories. Already we are dealing with a Bantu myth theory. They're coming with other theories to support this theory. How can a theory be supported based on other theories? No, a theory must be supported by facts. So they are saying, oh, maybe the males traveled far and left the females, and therefore they mated with the new females they found there. But I'm saying, if you knew the culture of these people, you wouldn't even suggest something like that. Males wouldn't even leave their wives for a hunting expedition if they were going to hunt a serious big game, like an elephant or a lion Okay, maybe lion, they would leave females. But if they were hunting like an elephant or a buffalo, which was going to take days or even weeks, males wouldn't even leave their wives behind. Why would they leave their wives behind if they are traveling across the entire continent? So they are finding that there's so much genetic diversity, it cannot just be sidelined. So they must come up with another theory. So what I'm saying is, there's nothing wrong with wanting to explore the possibility of some migration. But we cannot take this as a fact. Bantu migration is not a fact. It's not a truth. It's not a fact. It's not truth. Therefore, when you're busy arguing online that there's a group of people called Bantu who come from Cameroon today, tomorrow they come from Congo, the next day they come from Sudan, the other day they come from Middle East, the other day they come from Caucasus Mountains. Every day they come from a different location. And I will show you all these theories. Don't worry. I've been doing this thing for more than 10 years now. I started as a teenager. I was a teenager when I started to research this. And I'm just putting that out there so that at least people appreciate that I've gone through the different spheres of learning. I've gone through the different spheres of learning. I've connected with Congolese people. I've connected with Americans. I've connected with people from the Caribbean. I've studied Paleo-Hebrew. I've learned Akkadian and Old Babylonian. I've even learned Sumerian in this study of the so-called Bantu identity, because it is an elusive identity. So I've done all of that, like, thoroughly. I know Paleo-Hebrew thoroughly. So I'm gonna go into those theories. There are many theories that you're gonna see that it's theories, but most of these theories are also based on other theories. None of them are actually based on facts that can be confirmed. This is the second genetics study. It says the males maybe left the females behind when they were migrating. So therefore, the females came from all different groups. What I say is that the Bantu identity, in essence, as it's understood today, is not genetic identity, but rather ethnic, cultural, linguistic identity. There's one pattern. Whenever we study any group of people in South Africa, or Zimbabwe, or Botswana, any group of people, we did Vatsonga or Xitsonga speaking people, we realize that Vatsonga themselves are many different groups. Within the Vatsonga, you have Vatwa, who were originally Click language speakers. You have Amandwandwe. Within the Vatsonga, you have Kalanga peoples, but they are all part of the Vatsonga. You go to AmaZulu, you find the exact same thing. Kuna AmaZulu angamaThonga, kuna AmaZulu angamacele, kuna AmaZulu angamantungwa, kuna AmaZulu angabambo, etc. etc. AmaZulu abangabathwa. There you have Zulus who are Abathwa, you have Zulus who are Qora, you have Zulus who are Xhekwi, you have Zulus who are originally Sotho. Same thing with the Maxhosa. And this is the exact same thing within the whole Bantu ethnic identity. It's an ethnic identity based on linguistic groups. But even these linguistic groups, they overstate the similarity within these linguistic groups. Some groups are similar to each other more than others. Thank you, Observer. Thank you for the gift, guys. Thank you for the gift. Some groups are similar more than others, and some groups have way more diversity within each other. You understand? In fact, if we're going to go the language route, I can show you similarities between Middle Eastern languages and Southern African languages. If we're going to go the language route, I can show you similarities with Greek and Latin, with our indigenous languages. What are we going to say? Then we're going to say we are Greek now. Are we going to say we are Latin? In fact, there's another group where people do that, by the way. People do that apparently we are Portuguese descendants. Because when you go deep, because we have the most ancient DNA, by virtue of us being the most ancient group on earth, we ought to be the most ancient language speakers. Do you understand? Our languages mimic nature. Our languages literally mimic nature. There is no civilization in the entire world that exists that cannot be linked back to us. I promise you. You look at Native American civilizations, listen to the names. For things like avocado, it's avocado. Things like tomato is tomato. You understand? Chocolate, they come from those languages. And when you listen to the original words, they sound so similar to our words. You go to Babylon, you go to Arcadia, even in Greek and Latin, you listen to some of those, you're like, damn, these words sound similar to our words. It's not shocking to me because we have the blueprint of language. Our language literally mimics nature. We call rain imvula, but we also call rain Anyway, let me continue. There were other researchers who concurred and pointed out that there are discrepancies. There are discrepancies between mitochondrial DNA and Y chromosome in some populations in the so-called Bantu group. Some researchers think that it's because of these long migrations. Bantu males preferred pygmy women because pygmy women are more fertile. You see, those theories are very dangerous and stereotypical. They are very dangerous and stereotypical. Europeans, they went so low to go and create lies that Bantu males married pygmy women because pygmy women are more fertile. Who did the studies to prove that pygmy women are more fertile? They went so deep to say that Bantu males preferred pygmy women because you don't pay lobola. That is true. That is false. You pay lobola. In fact, people are so gullible that I've heard people say the queer people don't have culture. Someone who looks like that man in The Gods Must Be Crazy said that to me. I'm not queer. The queer don't have culture. My brother, you look like The Gods Must Be Crazy. Yourself, you don't even see yourself. Thank you, observer. You look like The Gods Must Be Crazy. You look like... It's Ngau. That's his name. Ngau Oma. Ngau Oma. By the way, that's his name. The man who acted on The Gods Must Be Crazy, the star, his name was Ngau Oma. Ngau means hunter. Ingau. A hunter. So, like the Xhosa name, Unongause. Ngau. Oma, you would know that in Eastern Cape we have people known as Amaqoma. In Northern Cape we have Omani people. Thank you guys for the gifts. Thank you. They say the queer don't have culture. No, it's a lie. The culture we call culture, the one we do, it's also queer culture. We cut fingers in my clan, in my mother's clan. We cut the last finger for men. The females cut the ring finger. Queer people do the exact same thing because it is the same thing. In fact, it was not done just in South Africa. All the way to Eastern Africa, they used to do ingqithi. Just one of the lives I did previously, I showed you there, the Hadzabe people. In their language, they say, Mua chikichane Mua chikichane Cut the little finger here. So it was an explanation that the Hadzabe people used to cut the little finger for boys and hang it on their forehead when they were little. This is what we call ingqithi. So the idea that there's this rift that exists between these hunter-gatherer communities and these communities who keep cattle. First and foremost, guys, you can't use lifestyle, huntering and gathering lifestyle and herding and agricultural lifestyle. You can't use that as a difference because I can promise you, Kora people, the people who gave birth to people like Ogaba, or Tiwoshe, or Titiba, those people, they kept cattle. They called them Khaigo or Khaikomagu, which they also call Amakhegu. Cattle that they used to ride on the ox back, on their back. Amakhegu. They kept cattle. The cattle we call Nguni cattle, they kept them in Cape Town. They kept them in the Eastern Cape. In fact, when the Kurikikwa were fighting with the people of the Almeida, the Portuguese in 1510, they fought with cattle. They rid cattle on their back, ox pack. They charged them with Khaikomagu. They literally charged them with cattle. So the idea that if you are queer, then that means you don't know nothing about animals. Oh, come on, man. Come on. So for me, if you want to use some kind of difference, look for a real difference. Don't create something that's not there. Thank you, Riyam Qad. Oh, I'm a Qad, my God. I'm not saying there are no differences between these cultures. There's differences Even within people who speak the same language, Amampondomise, they have their own differences from Amaxhosa. Amaxhosa within themselves, or Amaxhosa kwaNgqika and Amaxhosa kwaGcaleka have their own differences. So differences will always be there. But differences mean very little if we don't contextualize them. We have to contextualize these differences. So we have to understand then, within the so-called Bantu theory, if we take it at face value and apply it on everyone, like it's some universal, one-size-fits-all thing, we are corroding our own truth. We are corroding our own history. We are erasing ourselves from the face of the earth. Our identity is not an identity of set apart, being set apart from the other. The moment you see a fellow indigenous African as the other, and this is the biggest problem. I've dealt with so many people who don't want anything to do with queer culture. They don't want nothing. And I've also equally dealt with so many people who don't want anything to do with West Africans. And I laugh because it tends to be the ones who have heritage from those places. One group will say, I don't have anything to do with queer. I'm not Bushman. I'm a great king. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nigga, look at yourself. Your clan name is Ngukwe. Go to West Africa, tell them, where are the Ngukwe people here in West Africa? You understand? And you are a colored descendant from Cape Town, from Paarl, and you don't want anything to do with West Africans. So I'm not a West African. You are a West African descendant. Even some whites are West African descendants. So we have to now release the labels and look at the facts, because the facts cannot be changed. Thank you, my people, for the gift. The facts cannot be changed. Facts are, if we use Bantu as a label to mean genetics, whereas originally it was meant as a language grouping, we are erasing ourselves. I can promise you that. It has started. The erasure has started, and we are the ones who are propelling it forward. We are erasing our identity. We are erasing our existence. In fact, my brother Lucanio is pointing out that some Bantu people have been found to carry some of the oldest DNA in the world from 300,000 years back. Already that disproves the Bantu theory. Already, 300,000 years back, you find that those skulls were not even found in West Africa. You find that those skulls were not even found in West Africa. In West Africa, there are populations that existed there that are not there anymore. Some of those populations, they are said to have ghost DNA. They don't know which species they belong to. There's a website, I don't know if it still exists. It's called www.dnatribes.com. In Rwanda, for example, the Hutu and the Tutsi genocide thing that happened, it's misinformation like this. Misinformation like this that leads to things like genocide. People killing each other for nonsense. Oh no, you have a straight nose. You are a Caucasoid. And this one is a Bantoid. Kill them. Oh no, you are a Bantu. You are the proper indigenous person. Kill this one next to you. Only to realize that some of these people who are leading these genocides are not even related to both groups. For example, one of the President Kayibanda, he was a Congolese, he was a bastard son of a Congolese soldier who had a completely different white DNA from the Bahutus. There in Rwanda. There in Rwanda, the president, one of the presidents that led the genocide, had no DNA link to the Hutu people. But because of complete lies and misinformation, he's there. Kill them. They're not like us. Kill them. Let's kill each other, my people. No, guys. No. There is no country in Africa that has a homogeneous population. And again, I'm not saying it's wrong to say there was some kind of movement. It's not wrong. It has to be supported by evidence. That's all I'm saying. We can't base these things on guesses of Willem Billik and Albert Greenberg. We can't base these things on guesses of Malcolm Guthrie. You understand? So I don't have a problem with people having their own opinions about these things. I also have my own opinions, and they change over time because we learn. But we have to now assess. Now I'm going to look at something. I'm going to look at the population of the so-called Bantu people from 1900 to 2000, maybe to 2025. I don't have the figures now. In 1900 in Angola, there were 470,000 Bantu people. 50 years later, there are 4.1 million Bantu people. And then 50 years later, there are 10.1 million Bantu people. Do you understand? From 1900 with 470,000 people, 50 years later, they had 4 million. That's like 100 times more people in 50 years. How can that be? What kind of population growth is that? In Angola alone, people moved from 470,000, 1900 to 10 million, 102,000. In Botswana, you had 109,000 so-called Bantu people in 1900. In 1950, there were 389. In 2000, there were 1.5 million. In Congo, you had 4 million people who are so-called Bantu in 1900. 50 years later, that number had quadrupled had doubled from 4 million to 11 million. In 2000, there were 51 million people in Congo who are so-called Bantu. So this population growth, in fact, South Africa has the biggest population of so-called Bantu, together with Congo. Anyway, the borders changed, the numbers changed and all that. There's also those figures. The borders in 1900 and the borders today are no longer the same. So the figures are going to be different. But the population growth of the so-called Bantu is tenfold within a space of 100 years. The population grew tenfold. But the crazy thing, some of the skulls that have been discovered go as far back as 6,000 years ago. The oldest skulls. They don't have the same genetic pattern as some of the modern day Bantu people in those regions. In fact, if we use the population numbers of so-called Bantu people today, they would probably take us back to 700 AD. And there would be no Bantu people in existence after that. I repeat, my people, listen to this carefully. You can go to any AI, look for the total number of so-called Bantu people. It's a called Bantu people right now in the world. Take that number in 2025, reverse calculate it using population growth. It will take you back to 700 AD, which means before 700 AD, there were no Bantu people. How can that be? How can that be, my people? So who were the Bantu people in 700 AD? If based on the numbers we see today, based on the population growth we see today, the first ancestor would have existed in 700 AD. 700 AD, my brother, we already smelting gold in Mapungubwe. What the hell are you talking about? So do you see how unreliable some of these figures and these categorizations that we talk of? Because if we then separate the so-called Bantu people, in 700 AD, you would only have maybe 1,000 Bantu people to exist, which is a couple of families. Go back 100 years later, you would have maybe like 300 Bantu people. Go back 100 years later. So by the time you reach 400 AD, there's no Bantu people in the world. Thank you, guys. Thank you. There's no Bantu people in the world. So what are they by then? All I'm saying is, when we look at the figures now, the picture becomes very clear that there's so many gaps that there are questions we can't even answer if we look at these theories. And also, within the so-called Bantu thing, there are people who are said to be the proper Bantu and the non-proper Bantu. Within the so-called Bantu, or so-called Negro group, because Bantu is a replacement of Negro again. There's the proper Negro, which is the West African Negro. And then the Central African Negro is not proper. those ones they are mixed or whatever. Already there's a racist undertone within the whole Bantu theory. Thirdly, the Bantu theory has been used to cause division within Africa. It's not abnormal these days to find pages that are dedicated to anti-Bantu, anti-so-called Bantu themes. Because apparently the Bantu displaced the Nilotics, and they displaced the Khoisan, and they displaced the Pygmy. Soon, when you guys start claiming that you are from Congo, you're from Cameroon, the people of Cameroon are going to say, yeah, you are displacing us now. I'm saying, based on the theory itself, that's what is coming now. Because the people of the Nilotics are going to say, oh no, you guys come from Congo. You guys came from, what is this? Cameroon. So you're not from here. I would do that as well. You guys accept that you came from Cameroon. So you're not from East Africa then. So the so-called Bantu people in East Africa are foreigners. That's what the theory is saying. And therefore, the sentiment among some Nilotics that says the Bantu were invaders, then it makes sense. Because the Bantu already, so whoever the Bantu are, they accept that they came from Cameroon. There's already a sentiment that they go around displacing all groups. In fact, the way I see it, if you guys continue with this, trust me, someday you will believe you are from Europe. Someday you guys are going to believe you're from Europe. And there are already like propagations of such sentiments. People like Mary Barber and Thomas Bowker. Mary Barber and Thomas Bowker have already explicitly said that the proper indigenous South Africans are white. Mary Barber, Thomas Bowker, their sister and brother, they've already written so many articles on this. They already say the true indigenous South Africans are actually whites. So when the whites came here, they didn't come here to colonize. They came here to fight for their freedom. All of a sudden now, indigenous South Africans are actually white people. I wonder who allowed that to happen. If not the same people who are always worried about, oh no, we come from somewhere else other than where we already are. In fact, there was, again, my people, I want you to go back and do the calculation. Look at the total Bantu population today and calculate it back. How far back was the original ancestor? You will realize that the original ancestor was just now. Just now. But DNA evidence suggests otherwise. DNA evidence suggests that we've always been here. And not just in South Africa. And not in West Africa. Every other place where we've been. And that's it. It's final. But maybe let me go a bit deeper into this. There's Inskip who wrote a piece suggesting that there was a connection between this so-called Bantu group and hunter-gatherers. Inskip says, there is no such a thing as the Bantu physical type, basically phenotype. There is no actual Bantu phenotype. That's what Inskip says. Bushmen-like skeletons have been found as far afield as the Nile Valley and dating back to 12,000 or 14,000 years ago. By contrast, the oldest Negro are no older than 6,000 years. Few Negro remains have been found at all, and of those known from Southern Africa, none is older than 1,500. And this was written in 1979. Do you understand that these people don't even have a clue of who you are to begin with? So they need to go and dig for skulls so that they can find that you guys were really here. But I tell you right now in the Western Cape, there's a place called Gordon's Bay. They found skulls there going back 100,000 years. I'm telling you about humans right now. 100,000 years, there were humans in the Western Cape 100,000 years ago. In the Eastern Cape, there were humans. In Limpopo, Shasha Valley, there were humans already. But it is interesting to me that so much focus is focused on one specific group, the so-called Bantu. No one is studying Nilotic movements. No one is studying pygmy movements. No one is studying the movements of the Somali peoples. Nobody is coming with theories of how these people moved. INSKEP, INSKEEP. Thank you, observer. So why is it that the only focus is on this so-called Bantu nonsense? They've written so many books. I've read so many books, guys, so many. And all of them have their own individual conclusions. None of these books agree on anything. Each book suggests its own origin of the Bantu. Molweni. I'm going to say a name of a book right now. Christopher Ehret, a professor in the University of California, Los Angeles. He wrote a piece. It's found on JSTOR, if you want to look for it. It's called Bantu Origins and History, Critique and Interpretation. It was written, I think, in the 70s. Go look for it. Bantu Origins and History, Critique and Interpretation. It's written by Christopher Ehret. It's a professor of linguistics, I think. He was criticizing the work of Malcolm Guthrie, the Zambian linguist, the Zambian missionary who came and told us about Bantu languages. But perhaps there's another book you want to look at. It's called The Origins of the Bantu. It was written by Johan Frederick van Oort. This one was written by an Afrikaner in 1967. The Origins of the Bantu, a preliminary study by Johan Frederick van Oort. The book was written and published in 1967. No, 1907. Do you know what the conclusion of this book was? The origin of the Bantu. They say the Bantu came from West Asia. South African government funded book. They say the Bantu came from West Asia. What did they use? They looked at some words. I read the book. I completed it long ago, years ago. I read it and I completed it. There's nothing that has to do with DNA. There's nothing that has to do with oral history. There's nothing that has to do with archaeology. They only looking at some words between some West Asian language and South African language, and they say, oh no, these people came from West Asia. They needed our people to come from anywhere except where they are. They needed our people to come from anywhere else except where they are. They need you out of your land because you're sitting on top of diamond. You're sitting on top of gold. You're sitting on top of uranium. You're sitting on top of oil. You're sitting on top of salt. You're sitting on top of bronze. You're sitting on top of brass. You understand that? You have oceanic, you have aquatic resources. Aquatic resources will literally have 3 currents feeding our oceans. We have the warm current on the Indian Ocean. We have the cold current on the Atlantic Ocean. We've got the current from the Antarctica. It's called the Antarctica Circumpolar Current. 3 bodies of water, 3 temperatures, rich waters. They need you to move. They need you to move because their ships cannot move freely. It's going down there by Yemen. It's going down there by Suez Canal. They need the Cape of Good Hope, as they call it. So you are going to come from anywhere else except where you are. And they will keep on pushing it. And I'm telling you again, Mary Barber and Thomas Bowker say the indigenous Africans are white. The indigenous South Africans are white people. That's what they are saying. But let me go a bit further. Desmond Clark also wrote a piece in 1970. Thank you, observer. Desmond Clark wrote a piece in 1970. He says the mixed Negro and Khoisan physical characteristics shown by some of the skeletal remains from sites in Zambia, Rhodesia, and northern Transvaal showed just such a hybridization. Indeed, this is the most likely explanation of why it is not possible to speak of a Bantu physical type, Bantu speakers from East Africa exhibit many differences among themselves. For example, as do those from Central and Southeastern Africa from one another. This must be due largely to their mixed genetic composition as well as to environmental adaptation. The many kinds of ecological circumstances in which the Bantu language and Iron Age technology developed and the variable composition of the gene pool resulted in the proliferation of a large number of tribal units after AD 1000, after 1000. Not until the 11th century in the subcontinent do we begin to see the onset of competition for land, blah, 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 blah. This was in 1970. Desmond Clark wrote this, pages 218 to 209. What he's saying is that even the skeletons that they dug here in Southern Africa and Central Africa, they show a clear so-called Negroid Khoisan phenotype. That's what they are saying. That phenotype is what you would call a typical South African phenotype. The phenotype that they are saying is what you would call a typical South African phenotype. For example, look at this gentleman. This gentleman belongs to the Nxasane people. Utatu Nxasane lo. He speaks Xhosa. He speaks Sotho. But he's Nxasane. We know they are Khegwi. When they dig skulls of people like this, they don't know how to categorize them. That's what confused them so much. This is what confused them so much. This gentleman used to speak Xhosa, but he's a Kunukwa. So when they dig the skulls, they don't understand. Hey, Mara, this is a Bantu person. We can see they used to practice agriculture. But hey, when we look at the bones, this is a... So they don't know how to categorize our people. The problem is that they were not asked to categorize our people to begin with. Nobody asked them to do it. We don't want them to do it. Willem Bleek, nobody asked you, Madasaka. So what you see here is evolution of culture from hunting and gathering to agriculture and pastoralism. It has nothing to do with DNA. It's cultural evolution. Thank you, my guys. Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys. So our people evolved culturally from being hunter-gatherers to being agriculturalists and pastoralists. This is exactly why, although I come from a culture of pastoralists and agriculturalists, I have an unlimited supply of indigenous knowledge on hunting and gathering. Unlimited supply on hunting and gathering. We know what roots to eat when you are going on a long journey. We know what roots to eat that are going to give you energy. What teas to prepare. We know what roots to eat when there's drought. We know how to hunt every single animal. We eat wild stuff, wild vegetables. That's what they call them. They call them wild. We call them natural. We know how to hunt. We have an entire linguistic lexicon just to deal with hunting alone. We are hunter-gatherers. But that's not how their categories work. Their categories work as in, no, if you're a hunter-gatherer, you must speak click languages, and you must be short, and you must look this way. So you guys don't look this way. Oh, damn. Another one looks this way. Oh, damn, in the same family, one is light-skinned, one is dark-skinned, one is tall, one is short. Oh, damn. How do we categorize these people? In the same family, one has tightly coiled hair, like peppercorn hair, and another one has a bit more like loose fussy hair. So how do we categorize them? They don't know. Shame. And that is why it's a problem for them. They don't know how to categorize the so-called Bantu people. They should have asked us who we are. We're going to tell them exactly who we are. We are the indigenous humans. We are indigenous Homo sapiens. Our identity has been concerned with keeping Homo sapien blood pure. That's the basis of our culture. In fact, in Rwanda, there are many hunter-gatherers too. And over time, they just change, you know. They just changed from being hunter-gatherers. They start to be farmers now. There's a group of people known as Abayovu. Hunter-gatherers and Abayovu. You know what Abayovu mean? It means Abendlovu, Abakwandlovu in Rwanda. Why is it called Abayovu? Because they used to hunt elephants. We used to hunt elephants. Who do you think sold ivory to the Portuguese and the Dutch and the Germans? We did. So we are hunters. We used to gather roots. How do you think we got to know so many roots? Some of these roots we even used in the most sacred ceremonies. We call these roots ubulawu. How do you think we came to know those things if we did not gather? Don't play with us here. So what happens is that a pastoral nomadic life, it has harsh realities. Pastoral nomadic life has harsh realities. Communities over time stop being pastoralists and stop being nomadic everywhere in the world. It's not just here in Southern Africa or in Western Africa or in Central Africa or in Central Africa. All communities that used to be pastoralists, for the most part, they've stopped now. They live a sedentary lifestyle. They plant, they do farming from one location. So now, the people who used to be hunter-gatherers and now are just agro-pastoralists, did they stop to be hunter-gatherers now by blood? No, they didn't. And also forests. Forests are used now for timber. Forests are used for timber and rubber. Forests are used for tourism. Where I'm from, we can't go to the forest and hunt. You'll get arrested. So how can I be a hunter-gatherer today? So I repeat, these differences between who's a hunter-gatherer and who's not a hunter-gatherer, it's not real. In fact, most of the so-called Bantu people, even here in South Africa, they don't even plant anymore. They buy from Pick and Pay and ShopRite and Woolworths and Checkers. So they are not even agro-pastoralists. They are buyers now. So is that a new group now? Is that a new ethnic society? Are black South Africans now a new society because they buy from European shops now? They're no longer planting as they used to. We no longer hunt as we used to. We no longer gather. So we've stopped being the people that we were now. So culture evolves. Culture changes due to many, many, many things that happen. But one thing is absolutely certain. The DNA of Abantu, not just South Africans, Abantu nje, generally, whether you go to Congo, whether you go to East Africa, the DNA is always congruent to the location where they are. Go and study the genetic sequencing of so-called East African people. You will see they have strong nilotic presence. And it's not something from yesterday, and that's the thing. People think admixture is something from yesterday or this. No, their DNA is congruent. It is congruent to their location. They are part of the populations where they are. Same as people in South Africa. People in South Africa, whether they are black or pink or purple, they are part of the populations where they are. People in West Africa, they are part of the populations where they are. People in North Africa, the exact same thing. And please, again, I'm not saying this group did not move or whatever. Groups moved. There's no problem with that. We moved. We've been moving. That's why to this... we moved north to south, south to north, east to west, west to east. We've been moving. We've seen people moving from Cape Town to Namibia, to Angola. We have Kwadi people in Angola today, they speak Click languages. We have Chizama people in Malawi today, they speak Click languages. Skeletons in the Nile Valley have people with hunter-gatherer DNA that links them to Southern African populations. So even skeletons from like thousands of years ago still have similar DNA patterns like modern-day Southern Africans. So when you say, oh no, we mixed when we got to Zimbabwe, we mixed the great Bantu mixed. No, Baba, you go to the Nile Valley, those skulls have similar DNA patterns as people in Southern Africa. So I sometimes listen to people like Baba Credo Mutwa who suggest that, populations in North Africa had always had a relationship with populations in Southern Africa. And I would say the same for populations in Eastern Africa and populations in Western Africa. The likes of Mansa Musa are good proof of that. How could Mansa Musa in those years travel all the way to Saudi Arabia If there was no relations between all these groups, the idea that people lived in silos thousands of years ago is complete bollocks. It comes from a place of absurd misinformation and ignorance. So anyway, what am I saying? What I'm saying is the people in Southern Africa, whether you say Abatwa, whether you say Abantu, there's all evidence suggests that these people come from the same source. Whether you believe they came from East Africa or West Africa or Northern Africa, genetics suggests that they came from the same source. Genetics also suggests that the oldest group of populations, genetically, even in Southern Africa, still have links to populations in Western Africa and Eastern Africa. I repeat, as much as the population in Southern Africa have the oldest DNA, there's still genetic links to populations in Western Africa and Eastern Africa. That's genetic evidence now. It's there. And this is ancient stuff. This is not stuff from 500 years ago. I'm talking about stuff from like 10,000 years ago, 15. Now, there are fresh patterns of intermixing, new patterns of intermixing. This is stuff that happened from 1000 AD, 800 AD. That's new stuff. You understand? That's new stuff all the way to the 1500s. That's medieval admixture. It does not replace the original proto-origin of the so-called Southern African people, which is one source. You can take time and learn about DNA, learn about haplogroups, learn about mitochondrial DNA. You will see, I promise you, all these populations in Africa today, the West Africans, the East Africans, all indigenous melanated Africans come from one group of people. And those group of people can be found, or at least the oldest link to those people is here in Southern Africa. That one is without doubt. Southern Africa has the oldest links to human origins without a single doubt. That's established. Not just human origin, the very essence of civilization in and of itself. Now, have there been movements to and fro, back and forth? Obviously. Not just movements in terms of people. Nature has been moving. Water is much closer to us now. Water used to be far back. There are things that we consider as if they are in the ocean today. There are archaeological sites. I forgot the name they call them by. They call them Robbenberg or something. There are archaeological sites near the ocean that show that people used to live further into what we call the sea today. Into what is the sea today? There used to be lands, fields, velds where people used to actually live. Skulls that have been excavated, skeletons prove that populations have been living across vast places in South Africa. Vast places. I was reading sometime last week about a place, I think in Hermanus. Thank you, my people. Thank you, Nika. Thank you, Observer. I think in Hermanus, there's evidence there that the sea used to be further back 15,000 years ago. That's what the DNA is saying. Do you believe in evolution? Evolution as in like people came from monkeys? Nah, man. It's things like that, like theories like that. Again, it's a theory. It's a theory. It's not a fact. It's exactly why we are in this conundrum that we are today. The Bantu theory. It's a theory. All I'm saying is that evolution is not necessarily people coming from monkeys. The word evolution itself, like people who are changing from hunter-gatherers to being farmers, that is cultural evolution. That's what I'm talking about. Cultural evolution. You see, cultures do evolve over time. So that one, the other evolution is something else. I don't even want to entertain it. I'm not really big on theories that come with people who used to pee on chamber buckets or chamber pots 300 years ago. People who used to poop on chamber pots and throw them down the window. I'm not keen on listening to theories that they came with. So sorry, please forgive me. Anyway, what I want to suggest now in terms of DNA is that the diversity in the DNA of Abantu proves that Abantu have existed with these other groups, which we can call Abatwa, the Nilotics. These groups is like they are branches of the same tree, and they've been intermixing for all existence. We are born for all existence. Hence, you will find a group of people, Abantu, who are in East Africa. They are in East Africa for a reason. Their DNA will account for East African populations. And this is true for all other groups of people on earth. But now we're talking about indigenous Africans. There's not a single indigenous ethnic community in Africa that does not carry the story of their existence within their DNA. You can even go to West Africa, do DNA sequencing, West Africa genetic sequencing. You will see they've mixed with a lot of groups as well. Because why? Indigenous human communities. Now, there's another layer now in terms of admixture, which is non-human creatures that mixed with humans. Non-human creatures mixed with West Africans, mixed with East Africans. East Africans have non-Homo sapien DNA today. Some West Africans have non-Homo sapien DNA today. A lot of Northern Africans have non-Homo sapien DNA today. You see now, that's a completely different story now. We're no longer talking about wholly indigenous genetic diversity. There's genetic diversity within indigenous communities, and then there's diversity where there's other non-human species that are involved. Homo neanderthalensis is one of them. Homo denisovans is one of them. Now, these things we can explore some other day what they are. Are they Amakongono? Are they the Anunnaki descendants? Are they the fallen angels? Are these people monsters and human eaters? Are they Amazimzim? Are they Amantindan? That's for another day. Today, I just wanted to express, when we look at genetics, truly, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. It's a story. DNA tells a story. And the moment you look at it in its true sense, it can't be used as a blanket term. So when we talk about then Bantu people, what are we really talking about in 2025? It's purely a linguistic group. Purely. In the truest sense, it's a linguistic group. But within those linguistics, it's also a lie. Because you see, in Europe, English as a language, they still group it. They still separate English. They still have South African English, Australian English, American English. It's one language, but they've got multiple dialects of it. They're able to distinguish the differences within English. So they don't use one blanket term and call it the Germanic languages. No, they understand really these languages are different. There are multiple categories. So within even the so-called Bantu language cluster, we are the ones who have to decide what language groups there are. So we must scrape anything that comes from foreign sources right now. But you have to study it to know its origins. And the origin of the Bantu categorization is this man that you see on this picture. Wilhelm Heinrich Blick from Germany. Wilhelm Heinrich Blick from Germany. And then you also have Malcolm Guthrie. He was a missionary in Zambia. And then you also have Joseph Greenberg, an American scholar. These are the people then we should understand. These theories were formulated and established by them. Now, we have a unique opportunity to scrape these nonsensical stories, come with our own versions from original oral evidence from our ancestors, And in that sense, we can come with reliable stories. I'm not saying people did not move. People did move. People did move, and there's nothing wrong with that. For example, there are groups of people who moved from Congo to modern day Zambia and Zimbabwe. The indigenous people of those countries know these people. They are known by the indigenous communities who are these people moved at this time for this reason. You understand? There are people who move from one place to another, and the people know it. But this one, nobody knows. Hi, guys, for me, it is a problem when people come with things that people don't know here. People must know, Baba. We want people to know. They must know, oh, this happened for real. You understand? This happened for real. We can prove it. You understand? So, now, the Bantu theory, guys, it's just one theory out of many other theories. I'm going to take another step now into this whole. There's another theory by Friedrich Ellenberger. Friedrich Ellenberger is a Swiss missionary. Friedrich Ellenberger was based in Lesotho. He wrote a book called History of Basotho, Modern and Ancient. In that book, Friedrich Ellenberger states categorically that the Khoi people are from somewhere else. They are not from South Africa. They came with ships. I repeat, go and read the book. It talks about the origin of the Barwa. He says the Khoi people, Barwa, came with big ships. And he further states categorically that the Khoi people were slaves of Solomon. They were slaves of Solomon in the mines of Ophir, which is probably Zimbabwe. They obviously agree, they say Great Zimbabwe. That's where the mines were and all that. So Friedrich Ellenberger then says the Khoi people were slaves. They were here to work. In fact, he says they were Canaanites, the people of Mount Hor. They were Horites. The people of Mount Hor, they are not indigenous here. So the danger of these stories is not just on Bantu people. The same people that are being used to say Bantu people are West African invaders, the story is going to come. So shortly after, obviously it's not going to succeed, but shortly after, because Parliament has been entertaining these weird theories. Parliament has been entertaining these things, which is absolutely discombobulating. It shows how deluded and utterly useless and helpless our politicians are to even entertain such nonsensical stories. People who have nothing to do with indigenous cultures are there claiming themselves to be the originators. They are there claiming that they are the originators. They will never erase us. They never could to begin with. So they're saying the Khoi people are actually, as they came with ships, they were here to work as slaves. So they're obviously they are not from here. They are not from, in fact, they G-sided Abantu. But they are slaves. But they are Canaanites who came from the caves in Middle East and ran here. They say the so-called Hottentots are actually East Africans, Somalis and Ethiopians who mixed with Khoi. So the so-called Hottentots are actually Somalis and Ethiopians. So for them, it's going to just be easy to push them back to Somalia. And in recent times now, they're saying that they are Asians. You understand? So what I'm saying is, the same people who feel excited and happy when these theories are being pushed, these Bantu theories, they don't realize that Bantu theories are founded upon other theories that still exist, that will be revived. When these people feel like they're done with this one, they will revive those other ones. In fact, I've read articles from the 1600s. I've read articles from the 1600s where they demonstrate and they draw pictures of our people as human eaters, cannibals. So what is the basis of all these theories? Why are these people so obsessed with these theories that Khoi people come from East Africa and others come from Middle East? So basically, no indigenous South African is from South Africa. That's what they are saying. All these tribes that you see today, Bavenda, Balobedu, Amazulu, Amaxhosa, Bapedi, the Ta, the Kui people, the Kha people, the Jujunwansi people, all of us, ne? We are not from here, according to Europeans. We are from somewhere else, but not from here. Bantu people, you have a lot to choose from. You can choose if you are from Cameroon. You can choose if you are from Congo, Babylon, or West Asia. You can choose if you're from the Caucasus Mountains, whichever one of those 20 endless homes of the Bantu, as they say. You can choose. Nice for you guys. The Kwe, they can just choose, which kind of ships they came with. Because they say they came with ships. They used to stay in caves. They were the people of Esau. They were killed by the pharaohs and ran to southern Africa. And then the so-called Hottentots, those ones, they say, those ones are just Somalis and the Ethiopians who are here now. So these people, which they grouped, all these three groups, by the way, all these three groups, it's Europeans who come with these names. Bantu, Hottentots, and San. All these three groups, this man you see on this picture played a massive role in creating these groups and categories. Very little consultation, if any at all, was done to even hear what these people call themselves. So I'm painting a clear picture now, so for all of us to understand what the obsession with these groups is. On the other hand, there's a lot of them now who are propagating this theory that actually the original whites, the original South Africans were whites in back in the day. I repeat, they say the original South Africans were whites. And as they were whites, they were wiped out by us. Whether you are Kwe, whether you identify as Bantu, whether you identify as Hottentot, doesn't matter. We wiped them out. And when the Dutch arrived, the Dutch were not here to colonize. They were actually here to save their brothers. They were here to fight for their land, the fatherland. The fatherland. So they say when they came here, they didn't come here to do bad things. They're here to fight. They're actually freedom fighters in essence. I know it sounds crazy, but trust me, not long from now, you're going to start hearing that. I promise you, not long from now, you are going to start hearing that. They are the original tribe of South Africa, and all of you are invaders. Now, you invaders are fighting amongst yourselves. Who's Kwe? Who's not Kwe? I'm the Kwe one. I'm not Kwe. We are from West Africa. No, we are the original. You are fighting Bona. They say the originals, and they want all of you out of their land. So, how do you then deal with something like this? You deal with it by exposing it. You deal with it by telling the truth instead. Because truth cannot be changed. No matter how much lies are being propelled and catapulted into the public, truth will always have power, will always triumph over lies. So we have to tell the truth, but we also need to understand that we need to be very careful when we deal with group identity. It's not a one-size-fits-all. In this life, we have so-called Xhosa people, we have so-called colored people, we have so-called Tsonga, so-called Swati, and all that. And we are all related because we come from one source. Now, within that source, we diversified in how we live and do our culture. Some took a hunter-gatherer lifestyle only or predominantly and did just a bit of heading here and there. Some took another and then we mixed, then we separated and then we mixed and then we separated and then we mixed and then we moved left, right, and center. We came back, we moved again, we came back. And that is the true story of Sub-Saharan Africa. It's a story of same origin, different expressions, coming back together, separating, coming back together, separating. But the key now is to allow people to explore that truth. Allow people to explore that truth. We are dealing with a group of people who are resolute, who have resolved to say, look, we are not going to leave this country. We are not going to leave this land. This is heaven on earth for us, and we are going to fight for it. Even if that means we have to change the story. Even if that means we have to make ourselves the victims. And they've started. They are going to Tucker Carlson's podcasts. They are going to Jordan Peterson's podcasts. And the story is one. The theme is constant. We are the victims. Do you not think that it's going to play perfectly into the narrative that these people are actually fighting just for their freedom? That's what they're saying. They are fighting just for their freedom, just for the language, just for their culture. Which their culture, we know it's genocide. But that's what they say they're fighting for. And we have to be very, very careful. And I know I'm saying this and it puts me on the spotlight. Already, I know there are things that have targeted me. Already, I know the stuff that has been, people that are looking up, following me, tracking me. I know that. But I'm trying to plant seeds. My seeds are not meant to cause further division. Not at all, actually. I don't need to cause division. Because in my own journey of self-awareness and self-knowledge, I realized that I could not divide. I could only unite with the self. But I had to separate from the lie. And sometimes I'm going to be harsh and abrasive because one thing I'm not going to tolerate is ingenious inauthenticity. Someone who has a genuinely bad heart and malicious intention, I will deal with you with very, 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 very strong blows. I do not play like that. But in terms of learning, we are all learning. Now, go and find the book, The History of Basotho, Modern and Ancient. You will see where Friedrich Ellenberger is saying the Khoi people are actually slaves who came from ships. Now, what happens with these kind of theories is that they find their ways into books. Ne? Now, the earliest kinds of books were not written by people who fought against Europeans. The earliest books in our languages were written by people who actually worked with missionaries. They had to have been written by people who worked with missionaries. Amaxhosa would know of the likes of Tio Soga. You understand? People who were actually educated in European institutions. So some of the stories that are written about our history, you can see this is not a real story. It's based on some mythology, the Ham theory, the Hamite theory, that black people are the descendants of Ham who was cursed. But there was no Ham that was cursed anywhere at all. It never happened. So I think that's what I'm gonna say. Now there are issues where you will find some languages tend to have mixture, like Kiswahili, which has a strong mixture with some Arabic dialects. But still, the basis of Kiswahili is still an indigenous basis. Anyone who studies languages would know that Kiswahili, foundationally, fundamentally, it's a Bantu-based language. It's based on Isintu. Yes, there's heavy influence of Arabic. Same as some languages from Congo, with strong influence of French. There's a lot of languages from Congo with strong influence of French. You understand? Yes. So it's that's also, but that's linguistic now. Now that linguistic admixture comes with genetic admixture. So within the Kiswahili group, you still find people who are of Arab extraction. The Swahili people, you still find people of Arab extraction. Some used to be slave traders, some used to sell slaves, etc., etc. But those are nitty-gritties now that we debate when we understand who we are. The biggest problem I have with my people in Southern Africa is that they do not know who they are. Just yesterday, someone in Europe, some black guy, was asked, "Hey man, where are you from?" He's like, "I'm from Zimbabwe." No, he's like, "I'm from Nigeria." And then someone asked him, "Can you sing the national anthem of Nigeria?" He's like, "Oh no, I'm lying, I'm from Zimbabwe." And then someone says, "Oh, okay, where are you from in Zimbabwe?" And then he said a click word. Kapu, kapu, kapu. And then people in the comments are like, "Oh no, that's not Zimbabwe. There are no click languages in Zimbabwe." And I was shocked because right now, today in Zimbabwe, there are at least 2 languages with clicks. We have Isindebele, Sakwamzilikazi. It's got clicks everywhere. We have Chwawu, the language of the Chwawukwe people, or Chwawukwe, or Chwari people. It literally has clicks. The Chwawu people are there in Zimbabwe. But the problem is that the mega groups that we have been accustomed to don't allow us to look at those people and acknowledge them. Some Chwawu people speak Indebele today. They've got Indebele surnames. Some Chwawu people speak Chirikalanga today. They've got Kalanga surnames. You have Xhosa speaking people in Zimbabwe. Amachawe akhona, Amaqhinebe akhona, Amazizi akhona, Amabhele akhona in Zimbabwe. So the concept now that, oh no, there are no click languages in Zimbabwe, and people agree in the comments. That's the problem with these mega groups. That is the biggest problem, is that you erase everything else and you must always align with this mega group, and anything else does not exist. And I am absolutely infuriated by such submissions. Same thing with Lesotho. Lesotho is not some place with some mega group of people called Basotho. No, my own ancestors come from that bloody Lesotho. Our language is still not recognized as a language. Somehow we should cease existing. So this is a big problem. It is a big problem. In Lesotho, you have Amampondomise. In Lesotho, you have Abatembu. In Lesotho, you have Baputi. In Lesotho, you have Khwaikwe people who are scattered across the different groups. You have Uka people who are scattered across the different groups. They are not an independent group today. Some of them are Bakwena, some are Bafukeng, some are Barolong, some are Batweneng, etc. In Lesotho, you have Amahlubi. You understand? But specifically, Baputi, they have a distinct language. Same as Abatembu and Amampondomise. They have very similar languages. Why is it not recognized? I don't understand it, because Baputi have always been there since, before the country was even Lesotho. Why is the language not recognized? Why do children have to cease speaking their language? Abantu bakwaBhaca, you see Abantu bakwaBhaca? Now that one is a new phenomenon. Abantu bakwaBhaca, it's a mixture of Amawushe, a group that is originally known as Amadebe, some of the oldest people in KZN. It's a mixture of Amawushe, Amazelemu, and then many other groups, you see. But Amabhaca, Amawushe, Amazelemu, a royal clan within Amazulu is the same royal clan kwaBhaca. You understand? That's what forms the leadership of Amabhaca. Yabo. Amadebe, yes. What forms the foundational people of Amabhaca is those groups, Amadebe, Amawushe, Amazelemu. The royal clan of kwaBhaca is actually Zulu, proper Zulu. And then all the other clans that culminate what we know as Amabhaca today, it's any other group. Many people are there. Akhona Amazizi kwaBhaca, akhona Amahlubi kwaBhaca, akhona Amabhele kwaBhaca. And a lot of them will not even say which they are Amazizi or Amabhele or Amahlubi. They will tell you straight bangamabhaca. Because ubuBhaca is not necessarily genetic, it's political. It was a polity that was formed in those days as a survival thing, and it became what it is today. By bloodline, Uzizi, Udlamini, Ujama, Usjadu from the Bhaca people is still the same as Uzizi from KZN, is still the same as Uzizi from Eastern Cape. Same people, but the polity under which they belong. And that's the thing, the fluidity of our people. They understood it's allegiance. I can change allegiances anytime for survival. And this is the problem with people. They don't understand about queer culture. They don't understand it when I say Abantu bakwaNxasane in KZN ngabathwa. Abantu bakwaXulu ngabathwa. They don't understand it. They think I'm saying Abantu bakwaXulu are not Zulu, so they must hate Zulus. I didn't say that. It's the fluidity in identity. It's how we are as a people. Our identity doesn't remove our identity. It adds onto it. The fact that I speak isiXhosa today doesn't remove the fact that I was Tembu 100 years ago. And the fact that I was Tembu 100 years ago doesn't remove the fact that we were independent 200 years ago in Lesotho. All those three layers are me. They make who I am. And I'm not going to go now and hate other people because, oh no, I'm confused of who I am. No. So when we say, hi, these people ngabathwa, people think we're saying they're not supposed to get along with whoever they live with. No, they're still Amazulu. abangabathwa, they are still amahlubi angabathwa, they are still amaxhosa angabathwa, they are still amampondisi angabathwa. Maybe someday we'll get to a place where we understand. We'll get to a place where we understand these things. So now, if we have such admixture linguistically now, some languages have been compromised. Then, if we say there's this Bantu identity that is based on language, so do we say then Kiswahili is a proper Bantu language? Do we say then the Swahili people are proper Bantu? Do we say Kikongo is a proper Bantu language when we know it has French influence? How much more the other languages further? Each and every country that colonized us, the language was influenced, which means the language has some discrepancies. So there are peculiarities in the Bantu migration. There are a lot of genetic peculiarities and loopholes that the scientists can never be able to answer. There are a lot of linguistic loopholes that the scientists will never be able to answer, and cultural as well. But one thing is certain. One thing is certain, we are related. I'm going to repeat. One thing is certain, we are related. But you will never know that we are related if you don't really know yourself. So you need to go deep into your history, into your cultural practices, understand them in the purest sense. Don't take cultural practices from 2025 and think they are the same as they were 300 years back. Trust me. Even the way we conduct traditional weddings today is not even the same as the way traditional weddings used to be conducted back in the day. We are related. We are related, but well, I'm gonna allow Mantsupa, and then Brother Limakar, and then Brother Sbuda. But anyway, I'm gonna say my closing arguments now. Bantu people, or the groups that fall under Bantu people, are groups who have culture. They've got beliefs. I can promise you with absolutely no doubt in my heart that these people practice the same culture as the people known as Kwe. They speak the same language. Bantu languages and Kwe languages is the same thing. And I have authority to say that because I've done the work. Now, what I'm saying is, I'm a Xhosa speaking man. I speak Sephuthi as well. I can understand someone who speaks Nama without much translation. I can hear someone who these languages belong in 3 different groups, but I can hear them. But according to the Bantu myth, I shouldn't be able to. And you can also hear these languages, even if you speak Shona. Even if you speak Shona or Xitsonga, you just don't know it. You don't know what to look for yet. But it takes like a few things to check and realize, damn, it's the same thing. So what we call Bantu languages today and what we call Kwe, in all the different groups that they are, whether you say Nguni, Zunda, or Tekela, Embolala, or Kwe language group. Yes, my brother. See, the languages that Bantu people speak today, you will, when you dig deep into the it links us back, and many people in the comments, it absolutely links us back into Ingasi language each other. I don't see why indigenous Africans don't see their similarities. Now, even if we can go to beliefs or the beliefs with the gods and all that. Trust me, even the mythology. I was talking about itself means to pull into a same thing you find in Nama Goab speakers and Kwekwe Goab speakers. They have it's a it's a what Kalaga, Mbubi, Ngului, Kalung, Muzinda, Kambelembele, Katonda, all these entities can be translated back in English languages. As Dweller, you have something to say to us today.
Club namhlanje. Yes.
Amaku.
Oh, yeah, Sandile.
Amaku.
I've seen that we tend to actually divide when we tend to, praise ourselves individually in terms of the dialects that we are using, but the totem seems to actually govern us and entails a story that we actually come from the same boat. I don't know if am I still audible? Yes, so in terms of the lineage of our people residing in South Africa, since we have multiple tribes within South Africa and we can link our lineages to other countries within Africa. I think the key component that links us is the totems. The totems were there to actually install a security measure. So now what I've seen, the place that I currently reside in, we have, people using different surnames, and those surnames tend. We have people, I would say, if you come from a place, I come from in Limpopo. We have people like Manaswe, Pokwa, Ele. Those people, they actually are linked. They tend to change the use of surname. So those people changed their surnames, or we will say they were given those surnames by these so-called. Doing that, they have actually confused the descendants of those users of those surnames. So I think what Sandile is doing now is very crucial, since now we are in a era where most of the information that we tend to ingest and we cherish and we say it is of great importance, it tends to actually numb the senses of our people. And what Sandile said in terms of we tend to actually divert and try to seek our origins in other places outside of Africa. And by doing that, we lose the key component that we should be focusing on within Africa. So I say again, Sandile, my brother, yeah, it's hard. And the appeal
Yeah.
that you gave us today, actually, it's going to actually propel the listeners who are within our lineages, within our tribes, because even the Bantu, we have Ntuwe in this surname called Manaswe. Manaswe, when they praise themselves, they say Machedi. Machedi. We find other people using the same name Machedi. So it's gonna be hard to actually break it down. But what Sandile actually did now today, I praise you, my brother, and you're giving us, the listeners, actually courage to dive deep, because of we have been divided. Those people who are trying to come up front, they tend to face obstacles, and the systems that are there, they actually are politicized. So as I can say in short, there is a milestone that keeps on presenting itself as a seeker of truth and as a documenter of history within our country. And it's hard because of we tend to be scared that we might be unalived by the so-called politicized, because of now even the language that we are using, it's heavily colonized, and they're facing a human or an individual who's actually influenced in how they think, the psyche itself. I wrote something and weaponized to propagate a narrative story which can actually shift the psyche of man. And what is seen
Yeah.
by other people, it can be seen as nuisance. It can be seen as not as actually madness. And when you preach that to people, they can actually, take you to a mentally institution and say this person is not normal. So this is what is actually we are facing as people. Once you find individuals releasing information to the public, the public tends to actually be stunned, and
Yes.
not moving with the same propaganda they actually preaching towards the masses. You'll tend to be you'll actually be convicted. You'll actually see yourself in shackles, or I would say at the end you might actually be unalived. So it's hard. Let me leave it there,
Hey,
my brother.
thank you, my brother. Thank you. Thank you so much, man. I think that is true. That's why I was saying that I do understand the risks, No, no problem, my brother Limakara. No problem, my brother. I understand. I just wanted you to be there. Just stay there. Um, I do understand the risks. I got a call. I'm not gonna mention the details, but I got a call some time back from a principal chief, a chief of a royal family, and yeah, he was discussing similar concerns and all those things, because he says he can see where messes themselves, but there's powerful hidden hands behind the scenes that would rather see chaos than structure and rebuilding. So thank you, man. Mazilime ziyetyeni, that's what to say. Mawuqhawuke kunobathana, qhude manikiniki, kuzawushiya noonina ukondla. Gama Mantsup, how was it? You can share with us whatever you want to share with us.
Dumelang. I just wanted to show a few clips, if you don't mind. I put on my green screen to show. Just a moment.
All right. Mr. Makara, please assist with the tech stuff.
Okay, so this article is was talking about the history of Southern Africa, and I just wanted to say that with the continuance of the study, unfortunately by Europeans, but this one here, it's showing that, the claim that the Khoisan population of sub-equatorial Africa was fragmented by the Bantu expansion has been discredited by several scholars, as summarized by the archaeologist John Kemp's monograph on the pre-Bantu history of Southern Africa. The modern Khoisan represent populations that were geographically distinct and highly differentiated, both among themselves and compared with other African populations that have been isolated from other groups for tens of thousands of years, but which nevertheless share an ancestral cluster. And this ancestral cluster is split up long before Bantu expansion. So I think one of the issues too is that a lot of times people hold on to outdated and debunked information. These theories have been predicated on racist suppositions, right? Because when they actually do the work and abandon their racist ideologies, the history, the genetics, the artifacts that they're discovering are proving their former theories wrong. They are debunking themselves. The other thing I wanted to show, sorry, just a moment. This I've taken an undertaking to research the early records of these, what they call, missionaries or anthropologists, who are really running reconnaissance for Europe, right? This is an account by Arbousset and Dumas that was relayed in 1836, and it describes the capital of Tokoa polity, and it says that their capital, Maribang, is built on the summit of a mountain. The stronghold is approached by two openings on the western side, which are appropriately called, I can't pronounce. Please help. Thank you. Or the hewn gates. And these are narrow passages defended on both sides by strong walls of stone in the form of ramparts. This simple defense added to the work of nature, the inhabitants, have been enabled to sustain many. And it says it was the geography as well as the infrastructure was enabled Southern Africans to defend their territory, to repel invasion. and the one above, right, in 1820, this John Campbell says, the Tswana capital was a metropolis, and they were greatly surprised on beholding the number of towns which lay scattered in the valley. And the last thing I wanted to show, was this map. And these are the ancient stone ruins and cities that are scattered across Africa. And I want you to look at Southern Africa and look at the what can I say? The concentration.
Concentration, yeah.
Everywhere else, they're pretty much scattered, in a line or across. There's a high concentration in Southern Africa of these ancient stone ruins and cities, in this juncture, Botswana, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. This has been our
Original mother
history.
cities.
Thank you. And the archaeology also confirms that these people, when they established their kraals or their city states, that they would rotate. They would rotate, when the land is used up, because indigenous Africans knew that you can't just use a land, the nutrients from the land in perpetuity. It needs time to rest. So we'd move on to a different location, but all of those locations are home. And when they do the archaeology, they see that the settlements were built on top of each other. So at Kweneng, underneath those ruins, there are more ruins that show that these people have still been there in antiquity.
Absolutely.
One of the articles that I had read in conclusion, it also said that in the High Veld, in the Central Plateau of the Drakensberg Escarpment, that they didn't concentrate on the western side. So you see a lot of empty space in Namibia and Western Botswana. It's not because there's nothing there. It's because they have abandoned the research. And I am actually grateful that they abandoned the research and digging up our ancestral burial lands, our ancestral cities, our ancestral artifacts. It's not because there's a lack of evidence. It's because there's a lack of funding, a lack of interest in Europe, because a lot of these excavations were either done with the university. I can't remember if it was the University of Pretoria, but one South African university in conjunction with the University of London. So a lot of these colonial mercenaries, when they would send back reconnaissance in later generations, they would come and say that they're doing archaeology for anthropological research. But when they find the evidence that confirms that we have been there from antiquity in indigeneity, they abandon the search or the excavations. And I think it's high time for us. We need to establish our own institutions of higher learning. We need to establish and recruits our own indigenous archaeologists, anthropologists that have the cultural continuity, so that the racist suppositions of Europeans is not superimposed on what the history and the artifacts and the archaeology is saying. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for allowing me to present, my brother.
No, that's amazing. That's really amazing. Thank you so much. So these are stone ruins, and this is not even half of them. There's so much more. In the Kalahari Desert, there's buried entire cities that are buried underground.
Absolutely.
There's a book I have, I just forgot the name of the book, but I like how they actually say that Kweneng was a metropolis, which means it was a city by modern day standards. A metropolis, literally.
A metropolis.
Yes, it's a metropolitan city. In fact, we go as far back as the BC era, where you have the great Mapungubwe, which is truly the mother city of what we call South Africa today. But today, if you come to South Africa, they will tell you the mother city is Cape Town, which is absolutely discombobulating. Cape Town cannot be the mother city. It can only be a place in those regions. Limpopo is where the mother city, by all evidence, at least in modern times, our mother city is in the Limpopo area. If we go back far back, maybe with more studies, we'll find even more older sites. But modern day cultures, modern day polities that we call ethnic communities, we all can say our mother city is somewhere in the region of Transvaal, all the way to the Limpopo. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. I just
I
wanted to
think,
say one more thing in
yeah.
conjunction with what you said, that a lot of our civilizations, were heavily agrarial, or if they were following the animal migrations, right? They
Yeah.
need source of water. All of our civilizations are water, riverine based. We are, straddled between the Limpopo and the Zambezi and the Orange River.
Yes,
The
that's
rivers
true.
give us life.
That's true. And that is exactly why even a lot of our city names, and I'm talking to everyone, a lot of our city names, village names, huge majority is based, the names are based on the rivers. It's literally the river names. Because the way we lived is that the biggest river is the highest ranking Nkosi or Lord or Chief or King, whatever. Thank you, Blue Moon. So the biggest river is the highest ranking royal. They get the biggest river. And therefore, it works like that. The smaller tributaries, it's going to be a smaller group of people, a younger chief, etc., etc. And therefore, it made sense to name locations based on rivers. Majority of locations, a lot of my videos talk about toponyms, geographical names. For example, I talk about places like Gqeberha, which is what used to be Port Elizabeth. Gqeberha is a river name. There's a place called Kariga. It's a river name. There's a place called Qonce. It's a river name. Like we go to Umzimkulu, river name, Umzimvubu, river name. So that's absolutely true. In fact, we called rivers, especially when I was younger, we called rivers the Great House, Emzinomkulu, which means a palace. Yes, even Mtata, it's a river name. We called rivers the Great House, Emzinomkulu. We never call them by name. And this means the palace. This connects further into our spiritual systems, which I will touch on some other day. So thank you so much for that. And the beauty of language is that it crosses boundaries, man. When you learn these ancient languages, it connects you to areas you never thought you'd find access. Like recently, I did a live where I said a few sentences in Hadzawe or Hadzabe, and people who speak isiXhosa or isiZulu or Sisuthu could understand those words. For example, the little finger in isiXhosa is ucikican. In Hadzabe, chekechane. A dog in isiXhosa or isimpondo, isihlubi, it's ikhanka. In Hadzabe, it's kanka. To cut, it's mua. If you find languages like Chivenda, Sipedi, they have a word, mullo. Mullo or mulla is to cut or even to circumcise. You understand? So there's a lot of connection beyond what we see, but what we see is determined by what we allow to feed our minds. So we have to release now. It's imperative that we release the programming. The programming has to go away. And the programming is in what we understand as who we are today. We are programmed to see ourselves in this light as being the other, different from the other. That's not how it works, man. We are an indigenous African people. That means we're an indigenous people of the earth. The earth is our indigenous ground. It's our land. It's literally our land. That's why we say Abantu. Ntu, intutu, land, soil. Even words like Kru in Kham dialects, Kru meaning land, also meaning people. So you find that most of the words that mean land and people and human, they are related. Even in Greek or Latin, when they say homem for man, it literally is related to a word for the land or the earth. So we're the people of the soil. Brothers Buddha, do you want to say something before I close officially? I've 8 minutes. I have 8 minutes left now. And yeah, nyamatsatse, cheka, to cut in some Shona languages. Yeah, for us to cut, we also say cheka. So where the Shona use ka, we use a click cheka. Brothers Buddha, are you still with us? Kunta.
I'm still here. Oh, fine. Oh,
Kunta.
can I tell you? I think we are full. We need to digest and just go and check more of this information. But it's really amazing what you've given us today. It's taking me back. Yesterday I couldn't sleep because I was on a live in the middle of the night having a chat with other gents as well who want to know this history. I was amazed as well because this gent I could see is very young, but he is trying to get the history. And I think it's very important that we keep on spreading it to the world. Even if we have these small platforms, it doesn't matter what they can try and do, Mkulua. Analyzing is something that they've been doing for years, but still the evidence is still here. The evidence will never die. We will always remain here. We can't now have fear because of that. They've been analyzing our people for the longest time, but still they can't take us away. So I'm very happy about this. And it was something that also I was talking about. Like, for me, when it comes to especially the part where you were talking about migration, I said, as much as I understand that it happened, I have a problem when they say just it starts there in the Sahara. That's why I get to have a problem because I'm like, we were moving all over. You can't have full evidence that where did it start. You can't, and which is something that you're also saying. But reality speaking, my people, there's a lot that we still need to learn, and there's a lot that is still there, evidently. And also, we talked, me and you, the other time, that our clans are also the source. Our clans were never removed. They couldn't remove our clans because it's something that they ignored and didn't care about. Oh, them are people. Find yourself through your clan names because your clan names have so much history that you think it's useless, but it's more useful and it tells you who you are, where you're from, and where you belong. And it's your right to be an indigenous person of this country. They will never remove us. They will try. They will try because we're a rich country. We are. Even now, when you look at the politics as you are talking now, they are trying to do that so that they bring in then the bigger power, which is your US, and try then to destroy us because they are war people. That's what they're used to. And then try to take our natural resources because the main aim is that. Now, for example, they are researching about oil. They're like, oh, we have oil in South Africa because they want to take it and own it. Those are just the main things to them. But this is our land, unfortunately. And our land will always speak, even if it's quiet, even if we are no longer there. It will always say, the bones will speak and say, these people belong from here. They've been here. You will have to adhere one day and say, yes, we messed up. They did that to Iraq. They said, we messed up. We thought Iraq was like this. And then we found that, no, Iraq is not. They will do that even here. But we have to remain. The truth is the truth. It has to stay like that. And thank you so much.
Amagu, Xosi Qunta, Xosi Bele, Xosi Langa Lokulunga. You know, when I say Qunta, I think of the Qunda, the Qun people. And it's interesting that you mentioned that your clan names literally tell you who you are. When I say my clan names, Khansi, I think of the Khatsi people, the people of the island. So it's just amazing, my brother. Hey, my people. This live is there on it's gonna be there on YouTube. My name on YouTube is Sandile Tukani, Tukani. Sandile Tukani. Feel free to subscribe. Watch my videos. Feel free to subscribe here on TikTok as well if you wanna support the work, so that at least you know. But yeah, I'm gonna close it off now. It's 4 minutes to 10. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna rest. I'll see you guys tomorrow. This is Sandile. Thank you, Sister Lilith. Thank you. This is Sandile. Sandile is the son of Kunku. Kunku is the son of Sigova. Sigova is the son of Gokoza. Gokoza is a descendant of Tugani. We are the people of Anzi. We are the people of Jambase. Singohlathi, singolisa, singosanzanza. Amagu, singoncagala, izandlalanga. Sipheka iphemphem ngenqawana, sipheka iqaqupha ngenqawana. Sirhwala emgodleni, sithuka ngebulembe entabeni, sincola ngomhluzi amanzi ekhona. Singoluncu, singomwadla, singom with self now. My mother is cows. Thank you, my people. Thank you for joining. I don't know what's up with the network.